This is Facets of Connection, where we are transforming relationships within an evolving world. Brought to you by Relational Life Foundation and hosted by me, Sarah Melissa Oswald. This exclusive podcast series delves into the heart of human connection, exploring how we learn, love, and collaborate within a dynamic society. We'll uncover the power of respectful relationships and their essential role in the human experience. I invite you to embark on a journey with me to create a more connected, empathic world for future generations. In the heart of rural Nigeria, where the scars of a nearly 20-year conflict have etched deep divisions, one woman's vision is breathing new life into a fractured community. Chiddie Anyasodo, a licensed therapist and fierce advocate for peace, has woven together the power of relational life therapy with ancestral wisdom, bringing healing to her hometown from thousands of miles away in the UK. Chiddie stepped into a community divided by years of conflict, leaving the town gripped by fear, manipulation, and bitter mistrust. Local peace initiatives have stumbled over entrenched power dynamics and cultural divides, until Chiddie, defying patriarchal norms, stepped in and started a quiet revolution from afar, bringing fresh hope and new ways to connect. She guided opposing sides to recognize and even laugh at their own destructive patterns, blending Western therapy with local traditions and spirituality. Her tactical humility and unwavering compassion became the bridge for reconciliation, dismantling bias and empowering forgotten voices. Her work is nothing short of extraordinary. In today's episode, I invite you to join me in hearing her story and discovering how Chiddie is redefining what it means to heal conflict, transforming her ancestral home and offering hope to divided communities worldwide. From an electrical engineer to a relational therapist, Chiddie's journey is proof that peace is possible when we honor both science and soul. And with that, here we go. I just want to welcome you, Chiddie. It is such a pleasure to have you here on this podcast. I'm so happy that you said yes to doing this with me.
Thank you, Sarah. It's good to be here.
We have a really exciting story to share. You have an exciting story to share. And before we launch into that, I wanted to give you an opportunity to simply tell us a little bit about yourself. For our listeners, what's important to know about you as we set ourselves up for hearing the work that you've been up to.
All right. So I would say I'm a mom. I have two kids. I live with my husband and my two kids in the UK. I'm originally from Nigeria. I'm Igbo, from part of Nigeria, the tribe called Igbo, somewhere called Rogwa. Many of you might not know where that place is. And I grew up and became an engineer. And it was something I enjoyed doing. But today I'm a therapist, and my work is focused on one thing in the hidden relational dynamics that drive system failure. And what really makes all of this work for me is because of my background as an engineer, coming from the high stakes world of oil and gas, where my job was to diagnose what's happening beneath the seafloor. Today, that same mindset to find the hidden stuff that's hiding beneath the earth's surface is the same thing that I try to find out what's happening inside the mind and between relationships. And for me to do that today, I don't just use my engineering formulas. I now use a toolkit of the Mastery of Relational Life Therapy, that's RLT by Sarah, and deep psychoanalytic training, gestalt therapy, and all of my other counseling skills. So
I
there it
love
is.
that you made that analogy of looking under the surface. From the stories that you've shared with me, I'm so impressed with the way that you're able to do that in the most clever and intuitive way that I've experienced hearing about.
Thank you so much, Sarah. You flatter me a lot. You're one of my biggest cheerleaders right from the time I started this work. So I'll share with you my journey from engineering to psychotherapy seems quite like a dramatic leap, right? How do you
Yeah,
go
it
from
does.
all the logic where 1 + 1 is 1
Mhm.
to all of these dance that is more like an art that we're not sure of what's going on sometimes with so much chaos happening there. But for me, it's been the evolution of a single lifelong question.
Mm.
And that question is, how do complex systems work? What is the root cause when they fail? And so, whether that system is a multi-million-dollar oil well or a 19-year-old community food, the diagnostic principles are remarkably similar. I've
Mhm.
simply moved from engineering circuits to engineering peace and relationships.
Engineering piece.
Yeah.
And I love that you bring in systems because we know that systems principles apply in many different scenarios. So, an engineering system might have similar leverage points. You're looking for leverage points to change the way a system works. And that's how we work in
Right.
relationship as well, or at least how I do.
Exactly. That's how we work in RLT. RLT is about looking at every relationship, whether it's between a couple, whether it's between family with kids, whether it's within people working in an office, whether it's in a community, in a country. These are all systems,
That's right.
right? And you're always going to have a system failure somewhere. And when that happens, we have conflicts.
We can
And
guarantee a
then,
system failure somewhere.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
it's normal. Terry will say that the work of relationship is moment to moment. So these things are bound to happen. But the thing is that when there is this harmony, how do we go back to harmony? And that's the piece I'm talking about, right? So I go back to how did I go from drilling wells to relationships? So what I did in the oil and gas industry was that I worked in different countries. I worked in the Mediterranean Sea. I worked in the Atlantic Ocean. I worked in the Sahara Desert, in countries like Libya, Angola, UAE, France, Congo. And I was a logging while drilling engineer and measurement while drilling engineer. It's a very technical title for what is essentially a subsurface detective. So imagine that we are in a deep water platform in the Mediterranean Sea, okay, in the middle of the ocean. And my job is to use sophisticated tools that are going down as we are drilling the oil at the bottom of the ocean. After we get to the bottom, we keep going. And we're trying to understand, to see what we are drilling, what's happening in the formation, that's the soil, as we are drilling the oil. So my job is to be reading the data as it's coming up to the sea through my computers and to figure out, are we actually going to the targets that we want to get to? If we hit something, are we going to get an explosion? Is this safe to drill? So I'm reading that hidden world, the pressure, the porosity of the rock, the geological hazards, and all through the messages that are coming through the drill string. And sometimes you could be walking in a desert sandstorm or in a sea storm that could last 3 days or even more. I was in one of those in 2009 in the Mediterranean Sea. The storm was so bad that we lost communication from all the satellites and we lost our drilling equipment to sea. It was quite scary. And this can also be like when you're working with a couple who is having a very chaotic relationship or with community issue, and everything gets chaotic and everything wants to, explode. So it's similar to that. Every decision is high stakes. A single misinterpretation of the data can lead to a catastrophic blowout where everybody will die or you lose millions of dollars. But a correct reading allows us to steer the drill head with incredible precision to hit the target that is really small, maybe as small as your living room, many miles away. So for me, it taught me three things. This work taught my mind to think in a specific way, to trust the data coming from the unseen world, more than the assumptions that I made on the surface before my tools went down inside. And number two, to perform rapid root cause analysis under immense pressure. Number three, to understand that every massive visible outcome is the result of tiny hidden dynamics. My world, it was about precision diagnostics in high stakes, invisible environments.
Unbelievable, the metaphor and how it transfers over to the work you're doing now. Thank you for sharing that. I'm just so touched by it. I did not anticipate this, and I didn't know this was in your background even. But what I'm picking up is what I do know about you and your work is how incredibly tuned into systems you are and how tuned in you are to the individual, to the family, to the culture as a whole, right? Like all levels of scale. And you're always thinking about how will this culture take in this information? Specifically, yeah, I'm going to transition us now into talking about some of your work in your hometown in Nigeria. You have created peace in a place and within a culture that's been conflict for 19 years. And what you've done with the community there blows me away. And so, what I'm curious about, and maybe it's a good place to start to talk about this 5 masquerades metaphor that you've created.
All right.
Right? You developed this really powerful metaphor that you were telling me about. So can you explain it a bit and why you brought that in, where it came from, and how it works to help translate some of the concepts of RLT principles into the culture that you came from?
Thank you very much. And this still links back to my work as an engineer because I worked in different countries. And I did mention that I was also a business development manager, from engineer to business development, building teams across different countries with different cultures, which meant that for me to communicate well with any of my team members in a different country, it means I had to adapt to the way that they communicate. Now, the reason I created the 5 masquerades was also about adaptation to culture. I had this opportunity to help facilitate peace in a community conflict that started about 19 years ago. But it really got triggered to the level it was just before I came in about 2 years ago. And what it involved was working with people all the way back in Nigeria. Most of them do not have the concept of what psychotherapy is all about. And it's not like all of them are not educated. Most of them are well-educated people, successful people, but this is not just a thing in that part of the world, but they are deeply traditional and hold on to their culture, and also deeply religious, hold on to their Christian religion. So this was a conflict between the deeply African traditional worshippers of Igbo land, Igbo traditional worship, and the Christians, right? And then the community leadership. So I had to mediate, sort of like think RLT couples therapy on a big scale.
And you were also
And
telling me previously about how you had faced some skepticism about how Western psychology
yes,
would be received by a
ex
Nigerian culture.
exactly.
So you
Yeah.
got
So immediately
really
I got
clever You got really clever about how to communicate these principles. So I just,
Absolutely. So it was difficult at first because when I came in, first of all, that is a deeply patriarchal community that I come from, where women are one down and men are one up. And also, it's also about age. There's hierarchies. I'm 42, but in my community, I'm seen as pretty young. I'm talking
I'm
to men in their
42
60s.
also.
Oh, that's great. So men in their 70s and late 60s or even early 80s, I'm like their little daughter. So, and then I live in the UK. I don't live in Nigeria. I don't live in the town. So they think like I'm just coming with these Western ideas that I don't even know what they're talking about. So one of the key stakeholders in the peace reconciliation panel told me specifically that Western psychology or psychotherapy does not work in Africa. So, whatever I have learned or whatever work I've been doing in the UK or anywhere in the world is not applicable in African culture. So, I sat back. That was a big deal for me. I didn't just, dismiss what he said, and I didn't even bother to argue with him. I said, okay, I hear what you're saying. You believe that this doesn't happen? He said, yes. So I went back and I had done what we call our assessment in RLT, data gathering. I had gathered a lot of data for like almost 2 weeks. And I could already see the RLT losing strategies. I could see the dance in all of the people there from different factions. But from what he's saying, it means that nobody is going to listen to me. So how do I make sure they listen to me? And I was also talking to some people, some key stakeholders who do not even have Western education. So I couldn't even communicate in English language to them.
I was curious about that, what language you
Yeah,
were using. Yeah.
exactly. So it was serendipity. Luckily, because I was speaking to many of the members of the different factions, and one of them told me, because the argument was really about many of them didn't want anything to do with Igbo culture and spirituality. Again, they thought it was demonic. And this was, we'll talk about that later. But one of them started talking about one of our cultural symbols called masquerade dance. It's called Owu, OW. And he told me, this was an old man, that in the ancient times, our ancestors used this masquerade to teach morals in the society. So you could have a masquerade that is a thief, an armed robber, and the masquerade comes during the festival to dance as an armed robber and goes around stealing people's things. And you get upset when the masquerade steals your things. You chase the masquerade, you wouldn't get it unless you pay money, showing you the pain that people feel when their stuff is stolen. So he showed me all the negative behavior. I was like, So the ancestors communicated using masquerades. That's like psychotherapy, right? What can I do about this? So I decided to turn the 5 losing strategies in RLT into masquerades. So I created new masquerades for this. So, for example, we have unbridled self expression. I called it the masquerade of vomiting words, the vomit of words. And in Igbo
Masquerade
language,
of, sorry, I didn't understand.
vomiting, the
Unbridled
mas,
self-expression got transformed
yes,
into the masquerade of what?
vomiting words.
Vomiting words. Uh-huh.
And the Igbo name is Mazi Onubara Uturafo. So it means a man whose mouth has diarrhea.
Quite literally. Okay, great.
Yeah. Then,
So so just to reiterate, so the masquerades were used by community leaders to teach morals. And
in
so
the
you
ancient
took this in
times,
the ancient times. And so you took this idea and ran with it and created a
yes,
story that taught The morals of losing strategies from relational life therapy through
Exactly.
masquerades.
Exactly. And I would list all the masquerades and then show you how it used to happen in the ancient times. So then we have the masquerade retaliation, the losing strategy in RLT. Then I called it, of course, that's revenge. So I called it Mazi Imegwara. When you do to me, I'm going to do back to you. I'm going to hurt you back. And when you do me the first time, it's not going to hurt. So, but when I do you the second time, it's going to pain you seriously. So that's that masquerade. Then we have the masquerade of being right. So I translated it to my language. It's quite a sentence, the masquerade of never wrongness. So it wasn't like correct grammar, but it was that dramatic non-correctness of the grammar that made them like it. Never wrongness. The king who no one can advise.
Ah,
I'm
the
always
king who
right.
no one can advise.
Yeah.
Never wrongness. I love it.
Yeah. So we call it Mazi Isike Ekwe. I am stubborn and I would never agree to any other thing. I just stand on my grounds. Then we have the need for control, the RLT losing strategy of control. So we called it the masquerade of only what I say stands everywhere in my life, in your life, in our children's life, in the community. Only what I say stands. So we called it Oga Nani Nkenkurugeme. Only what I say stands. Then we had the masquerade of withdrawal. That's RLT losing strategy of withdrawal. Yes. So we called it the masquerade of turning my back on others and silence. Iwagidazo, I turn my back on you. So we have masquerade festivals. Okay, they happen like once in 2 years, where the ancient masquerades, we have like 23 of them in my community, and every community in Igbo land has their own masquerade. So they come every 2 years during the masquerade festivals. Every day we come to like the masquerade arena where each of them comes to dance. So when any masquerade comes to dance, they have a signature drum beat. Okay, it's quite funny. I'm a bit shy, but I'm going to do it. So let's say there's this masquerade called Ishibelebele. So that particular masquerade is a bit like the need for control. That one, the dance step is Ishibelebele Gebuza wa before Obonti. So the drums will be beating. That's what the drums are going to be beating. And so this particular masquerade, when other masquerades are dancing, everybody has their number, like you're number one, you're number two, you're number three. This particular one jumps the queue and pushes whoever is dancing out of the arena, flogs the drummers, and tell them to switch to his beats. So that one inspired the need to control from RLT. So I then embellished it more and gave it a lot of stories. So this is how we got a new language. Then the therapist, where you take, so this masquerades in the story that I created, they possess people, members of the community. And they were formed from the tears of little children who were hurt when they were really small, when a traumatic situation happened in the community. So it's like it's a fiction, right? So I had to make it like a fiction so we could just get in the story without suspicion to reduce resistance.
This is the part that I think is particularly brilliant on your behalf. Clever. I keep saying the word clever. You found a way. You were telling me that as you taught these masquerade stories, that the community members were seeing their own patterns of behavior getting possessed by the masquerades and able to laugh at themselves. And you found a way to pull away the shame from looking at these darker parts of our personalities or patterns.
That was the key thing, the shame.
Tell me more about shame. Why was that the key thing for this culture?
Okay, so you know, in patriarchy, the hierarchy of a thing means that perfection is a big deal. For
Affection.
you to be, yes, that the not perfection, performed perfection.
Oh, perfection. Got it.
You have to perform it, right? If you're the oldest, you're supposed to be the wisest. You're supposed to have unquestionable character. And in the past, we had rituals that ensured that, people actually went through some sort of our own kind of education of those days. In the ancient times, we called initiations, where little boys and girls were taught these characters in a ritualized way. But with the coming of colonialism, all of those things were lost.
Wow.
So there's really no formal way of teaching those things. But some of the cultural things still remain, the things of, as a leader, we expect you to behave this way. So what then happens is that people have not been taught how to behave in a certain way. So they have to pretend that they can behave in that way. And when
so
they
if you
make
call
mistakes,
attention to any of the things that they're doing that are actually causing pain and suffering for others.
exactly. So they're going to deny and attack you.
Uh-huh. And most people would have that tendency, but it sounds like within your village in particular, that was even more so the case.
It was a big deal, a very big deal. You can't say you say to someone, you're insulting others, this is, and the person says, but I should do that. So I'm telling them the truth.
Yeah.
I have to be honest. Okay. And this is revenge. When to do this, you have to do, yes, I don't want to be weak. The first thing I said, I was hearing all the time is, we don't want to appear weak. I don't want the other party to think they're stronger than me. I don't want to give them undue advantage. You can see the language in there. Right.
And you said, I
So,
have to be honest, though. I have to tell you the truth. But as we know in respectful relationship, the truth can't really be heard unless it's done with love.
absolutely. Absolutely. And that was where the masquerades came in.
That's
So
right.
when they saw the stories play out in a not threatening way, even the therapists, I had to replace therapists as what we call dibia in my community. In my culture, we have dibias. They are healers who heal both spiritually and psychologically and even the body. They are holistic healers. So I didn't call them psychotherapists. I call them healers. I call them diviners. So I would now say the people who were possessed by the masquerade, I'll show them the calamity of the masquerade. So when the masquerade possesses you, you can see how it causes problem in the community. I'll show them how the unbridled self-expression would humiliate his spouse and the children. I'll show them how the masquerade of control will disrupt all the community plans, destroy the leadership. When you make peace in the community, the controlling masquerade goes and scatters the peace. In fact, I retold the story of the conflict in the 19-year-old conflict. I told it in a different way in the story and showed them the masquerades that were ensuring that this conflict never gets resolved.
You're calling out their own behavior from in a way that they can hear you.
Absolutely, because they were removed from it. So they were looking at this community, by the way, which is, I use the name of our community, but different individuals and a different story. For example, we are fighting over a land. They're fighting over a land in real life. In the story, they're fighting over a drum, an ancient, mystical, powerful drum. Drums are sometimes the ancestors or the spirits can use it to communicate, or the leaders can also use it to communicate to the people, or the masquerades can use it to communicate. It's a communication tool that is very symbolic. So you see how I switch things. And then when the diviners in the story were called upon, who are the psychotherapists, and they started to diagnose the masquerades. It was very compassionate way. And they started to say, oh, this masquerade appeared when he was a little boy. And look at what the trauma he went through. It appeared when she was a little girl. And look at what she went through. This very destructive, powerful person that you see is not so powerful. And this masquerade actually came to protect this little girl that was crying. So when she cried and her tears came out and her blood and her pain, it it became the masquerade. And because there was no wisdom of the elders, so in the creation of the masquerade, those masquerades went from protection to destruction.
Ah, which is a direct link to relational life therapies
Exactly.
concepts of the wounded child, the adaptive child, and the wise adult.
Exactly. That's it.
Oh my gosh.
So they got it.
They got it. I love that. Is it in the tradition of the masquerades that they were formed from the tears of children? Or was that a piece that you
No,
added?
that was a piece that I just
Okay.
had to come up with. Yeah. I just transferred with trauma, how the adaptive child is formed from trauma in RLT. I just thought of a way to change it.
Brilliant.
So they got it. They got it.
Mhm.
And the best part where you were trying to go to is that now the community is creating their own masquerade stories using the RLT masquerades. I'm calling them RLT masquerades because that's their listening strategy, of course.
That's okay. Yeah, it fits and it helps us translate what it is you're talking about, especially with those of
Yes.
us who know what RLT losing strategies are. But I want to
Yeah.
actually transition to talking about this WhatsApp group that you were put into. You were being brought into this group of men, 20 something men, to make change in how they were handling conflict, a 19-year-long conflict. And you were able to move into this group as a younger woman, quickly gain the trust and the respect of this group of men. And I want you to tell us a bit about how you did that.
All right. So the taking over the WhatsApp group was tough. It was dramatic. So what happened was that particular WhatsApp group is what you would call the epicenter of the chaos of the conflict. Because in that WhatsApp group, they were fighting every day, almost like 24 hours, non-stop. And it was a trauma vortex. So whatever happened in that WhatsApp group digitally was affecting what was happening physically in the community. So the current barrage of religious slurs, degrading memes, threats, shaming, dredging other people's past, the unbridled self-expression, the retaliation, humiliation, oh my goodness, fear and all of that. Repair was almost impossible. That WhatsApp group held the collective nervous system of the community.
Wow.
So after I had listened to people and I got in there, I kept quiet. So I started first with psychoeducation. Every day I would send a short message about amygdala brain, about trauma responses, about fear, about relational living. And I tried to use the metaphors of the culture. It wasn't sophisticated language, it was very simple language. But even though people started to notice, the fight was not reducing, but people started sending me messages to say, thank you for this kind of message. But then that WhatsApp group belonged to the men in the community. And we have about 138 people in that WhatsApp group. Wow. So we have what we call kindreds in the community. So in that community, one particular kindred, not the whole community, owns this WhatsApp group. And it's just the men of that particular small kindred that owns it. Like a kindred is like a sub-unit of the community. So they invited some females, about 5 of us, they're sisters. And maybe someone married there, but not everybody is there, but you can come and watch and see what's happening in the community, but you don't have power here. So just be glad that we allowed you, a female, to come into the men's meeting.
So know your place.
Know your place kind of thing.
And
so
they were referred to as sisters And I thought it
Yes,
was really brilliant what you did to transform your role. Tell me how you talked
exactly.
to these
I know,
men.
I know, man, absolutely. So I knew that I had to stop that war because it was triggering the fights and keeping things worse. So I called the chairman of the men's group, the men's meeting, and told him that, could you stop the religious war here? He said he doesn't know how to do it, that the Christians keep looking for trouble. And then I called the patron, and said, do this and do this. This will reduce the war and make the peace process easier. He said, I don't know what to do. Why don't you become the chief whip? I can see all your messages that you put in every day. That means you know what to do. I said, but I'm a woman and you know that this is going to be a strong kickback. He said, okay, I can talk to one or two people. And I said, one or two people is not enough. You know that. He said, don't worry about it. See, don't worry about it is that in RLT, we would say the lack of attunement, not realizing that when you do this, other people are going to react. And I could see that he wasn't getting the message. I said, okay, that's fine. I said, there's going to be a big reaction. He said, we are just going to ignore them. And this was exactly the dynamics that has kept this conflict going on. That thing
Wow.
of, I can impose my will on you.
But you
So,
knew that he was setting you up to be eaten alive by this group if
yes,
you
I
didn't do
knew
something
that.
differently. Yeah.
Yes. And if taking my time to lecture him wasn't going to work. So I think he went out to spoke to the chairman of the men's meeting. I don't know how he convinced the chairman and one other person. And I just woke up one morning and okay, the chairman sent me a message and said, would you love to do this? I said, fine. He said, you know, it's going to be tough. I said, yes, I know. He said, there used to be a chief whip before you, that's the chief whip of the men's group, but he was removed because he started to fight. He was part of the other faction. I said, okay, fine. So immediately they made me the chief whip. Of course, the war
The
started.
chief whip.
Yes, the one
They
that
brought you in
this
as
is,
the chief whip. It's a
you
heavy
can
language.
imagine the irony.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were given role power that put you in a one-up position. But being a woman automatically meant you're one down within this group.
Yes.
And so what did you
Yes.
do to transform that?
So what I did was I looked at the most vocal. I saw some people arguing for me and said, this is a new dispensation. This is a new world. We're in a new world where there's gender equality. And the other one said that's a lie. That's in the Western world, not in culture.
Mm.
So I looked at the most aggressive people. I even got threats. They had to call my brothers to warn me to drop, to resign that position. So
Wow.
I asked for the names of the people that were training me. Everybody was the best opposition. I wrote down their names and started to call them one. And when I started to call them, I validated their fears and said, you have every right to be upset that a woman will. And they were so I'm talking to a man who is about his late 60s. So I gave him in the culture, you call them dad, right? So once you call them dad, that there's a connection, there's an emotional connection immediately. They feel a sense of safety.
Mm.
This is closer than sister. She's no longer an adversary. So I start to tell them that, you know, that I'm not here. I'm only here for 30 days. I've asked you to give me 30 days. I want a ceasefire in the whole community. But this particular WhatsApp group is not allowing that ceasefire to take place. And that's why I've been called here, because I'm a neutral party. I'm not supporting either of the factions. And if you give me the opportunity, then I can bring peace to the community. And then he says to me, but are you going to insult us? You know, we're going to say some things that are very rude or against the rules. So when you delete it, we're going to feel embarrassed.
Mm.
You're going to try to start to change our behavior. That's not going to work. We've been having this behavior for decades. That's going to be humiliating. So he was being vulnerable to me. And I said, you know, I've got brothers
Mm.
and they're all younger than me, and I don't humiliate them. And as a therapist, the core of my profession is not to humiliate everybody, but to treat them with dignity and respect and love.
Mm.
And I'm here to work for you. I'm not here to lead you. You have hired me. That's Terry's language, you know.
Yeah.
You've hired me to work for you,
Mm.
to make this thing work. So I'm going to ask you to tell me, how are we going to work together to make this work for you and I so that we can have peace in the community? And they say, all we just want is respect. I said, okay, fine. I'm going to figure out how to give you respect. So I called all the difficult people, and suddenly everybody is on my side.
The amount of courage that it must have taken you to make each one of those calls. And what I keep hearing is how you held the vision for relational health for this community in a time when no one else could feel it. And even hearing your story, I'm getting goosebumps.
Wow.
The hair on my arms is raising. And I'm just thinking, would I have had that courage and that persistence or the resilience to say, I can hold the vision for health here, even though they're telling me it's impossible. This isn't going to change. What if you had a compass for every relationship in your life? I'd like to introduce to you a small course called The Connection Compass, which is a powerful research-based course designed specifically to help you understand why you act the way you do in your relationships, and to give you some guidance as to what to do when you get off track. It's based on the brilliant relationship grid created by Terry Real, who is the founder of Relational Life Therapy. This course explores two key drivers of all human behavior. It explores connectedness, which is how inviting or how distant we are. And it explores esteem, which is how we judge ourselves and others. It's taught by Dr. Kathy Hill, who's a psychologist with 30 years of experience and a trusted voice in the relational life community. The Connection Compass program blends clear teaching with real-world practice. You'll get personalized, self-scoring tool to map your patterns when you're not at your best, so that you can show up differently at home and at work, with yourself and those you love most. This is more than just a simple program. It's actually part of a relational movement, one that Relational Life Foundation is committed to. So all proceeds from this course go towards supporting the mission of the nonprofit Relational Life Foundation, which is set out to provide low-cost, accessible relationship services and help combat loneliness through teaching connection. Are you ready to take your relationships to the next level? I invite you to join us for this program and reconnect with yourself in a new way and build the relationships that you want most in your life. You can find out more about this program at relationallifefoundation.org and in our show notes. And now, back to the program.
Just to finish the WhatsApp group, the major thing I did was to stop the war. So after I had put the rules and regulations, the new rules and regulations, no more religious conversations here, because that was the biggest deal. Do not insult anybody, do not degrade, do not release anybody's secrets. And everybody agreed, but there were people that kept doing it. So once you do it, I call you on the phone, we have a heart-to-heart conversation, and I show you exactly how that is going to trigger problem in the group and what it's going to do in the community. Tell the person, I know that you're committed to peace and you're doing this particular thing because you want peace. That's why you're doing it. And the person says, yes, I'm fighting because, however, this fight is going to cause problems. And there's a different way that you can do it that will bring peace. Are you willing to allow me to show you? And they say, yes. So when I finish, I say, it would be really helpful for the sake of peace for you to announce in the group that you and I had a conversation and you reflected and realized that this thing was going to cause problems, but you want peace. So you've agreed to delete your comments. So by the time we had gotten up to 10 people do this, that was the end of the fight. The fight ended. And then immediately I introduced exercises every week that was keeping the prefrontal cortex connected. So it
Give me
wasn't
an
about,
example.
so the first week, we did a contest. People donated, raised funds in the member of the community raised money. So we've got like big money somewhere. So there was a contest. Tell us the community, the history of the community. Who is the first person who started this community? Maybe 200 or 500 or 1,000 years ago. Who is that person? Well, who is his wife, who the children are? Where did he come from? Tell that story. So they're now talking about the, like, in family systems therapy, organogram. It's not the organogram, what you call it, where you are tracing your family tree. So everybody is not tracing that, and the first tree get a prize. Cultural stories. The next week, we talk about the stories your grandfather and your grandmother told you. So we're now connecting back to the things that keep us together, not the things, the ideologies that separate us. And this week, we said, what the miracle question was the contest. When this community, in the next 5 years, when the community is 100% progressive, still living in peace, so many beautiful things have happened. What will be happening? So there were 5 questions for them to answer. And this time we had many winners, not just 3 winners, multiple, so that everybody could participate. So they're supposed to submit it in the next 7 days. But people are now, in that particular group that was causing trouble, people are taking that assignment and posting it in other groups in the community with their own vision of peace. They're not even part of the contest. They say, so I told them, you go to bed and the spirits are going to give you a vision because, it's a spiritual culture. So go to bed, dream, relax, read, and you're going to receive visions of a peaceful community. And
Brilliant.
what would it look like? So that's what you're doing right now.
And I love how you connected them to the past, to previous generations. I think we can tune in to peace when we are not only just connected with ourselves and our current culture, but when we connect with past generations and future generations.
Absolutely.
That we want to be the best versions of ourselves for our ancestors and our children.
So it's very important to remember where we're coming from, which is what sometimes we tend to forget.
We're all guilty of that, huh? No matter where we live on this earth.
It's been very traumatic period for people, but I facilitated this piece. I started with a 30-day ceasefire where we all agreed to stop hurting and attacking each other. So they got to stop attacking themselves digitally and physically, and paused all court processes, paused attacks to police, paused the spiritual attacks, because they also had spiritual attacks and verbal attacks. So I facilitated 30 days ceasefire. That's what we called it. And what that was simply calming down the amygdala part of the brain. That was what the 30 days was, so that we could connect back to the prefrontal cortex.
Allowed their brains to relax enough to get back into their wise adult.
Exactly. Okay. And what's interesting is that after that, the chairman of the peace process, who was taking a hardline stand initially, because the two sides were being very difficult, but after the calm down, he was able to connect back to the peace process. And there was a therapeutic contagion where he started to practice RLT principles of same as. He started the way I was calling the difficult parties to connect, he took over and even did way more. He called all the fractured parties.
You empowered him to be relational.
I don't know how to say it, said to me that, you're doing this from the Western way. You went to school. I didn't go to school to study it. I think it's in me and I'm doing it now. And I'm like, yeah, it has always been in you. It's always been there. So that's what I tell them. I tell them it's always been in you. It's just that
Mm.
the right time has come for you to show that thing that you have inside of you. So he's been, driving the peace process. When people try to go one up, he says, no, you've got to calm down.
Ah.
We have passed that place. When people want to dredge up the past, and he says, no, we have to talk about the future. How are we going to repair? We are here for repair. So he uses an Igbo proverb, says that whatever happened night was just the mosquitoes biting. Today is about healing the pains of the past. It's no longer about who was wrong and who was right. It's how can we heal and move forward? That was so touching. For me, he's carrying everybody along, even his secretary, who was previously very skeptical about me. Both of them are moving towards so much that last week they're now negotiating all the terms of compensation. Some people, another faction became very difficult and they threatened to walk away. That if you, one of the leadership factions, if you don't make peace, we would stop. And everybody sat up immediately. I think this is the best part for me, that the community has now taken over and you're practicing RLT.
You have set them up so that they no longer need you to be there. And that is the job of any therapist or coach.
Absolutely.
This is an incredible achievement, Chiddie.
Yeah, we could go on forever. There's
We
so
really
many
could.
parts to
This
this.
could be multiple conversations. Absolutely. There's so much we didn't touch upon. But it sounds like what's next for this community is for them to do the inner work and their own relational work, that you can step away.
Absolutely.
You were talking about being right or wrong, that there's no right or wrong. And it reminded me of Terry Real's quote of, you can be right or you can be married.
Exactly. I use that for them all the
You
time.
did?
So they're copying that. Yeah. I said, you can be right, or we can have a peaceful community. Yeah. Where we love each other. Which one do you choose?
And they
And so
responded.
and they say we want a peaceful community.
Mm-hmm. Were you working
So
with both sides of the conflict?
yes, it was very tough.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Yeah. And getting the both sides to actually trust, because in the beginning they didn't trust. I mean, I've got to say that some sides were easier because we had the blatant side and the latent side. We had the grandiose side and the one down. But even in the one down, there were still, someone can be one down and still be grandiose. Sometimes grandiose, sometimes one down. But I was able to empower the one down sides, which is more like the traditional worshippers, empower them and stop them from being very reactive and being very retaliatory and being right. And then they came up to same as, and they were the ones that came very quickly connected to the prefrontal cortex. At the same time, the peace panel, the mediation panel's chairman, at the same time, he was also able to come up quickly. It was the other side that was more difficult. But at the end of the day, I think we are all there. Sometimes I had to use leverage, but I guess that's another thing for another conversation. It's more like this showed me that we've not even scratched the surface of RLT.
Not even, I mean, you've laid the groundwork, but there's still so much more you could do. So the two sides, there was a blatant and a latent side. You empowered the latent side to be more respectful in their communications, and you worked with the grandiose side to come down, and which is often harder, right? It's easier to
so the
come
latent
up
side is
from
more
one
assertive.
down.
Yes, they are more assertive, but the grandiose side is not so easy for them to let go of that power.
Because grandiosity feels good. It's not as obvious that there's a problem when we're stuck in a grandiose position. But you found a way to crack it and bring them in to themselves, to a same as position of equality. Unbelievable. Thank you for your work.
Thank you, Sarah, for the opportunity, and thank you for RLT. So among the 23 masquerades that they have, they are creating 5 more masquerades. The RLT masquerades are getting into the culture, and they're going to be immortalized, and they're going to create their own mask. They're going to design their mask and their uniform for them. They're going to design their dance steps for them and design their own drama, because each masquerade has a drama that it acts. You can see that. Then I'm also going to train people in RLT type mediation, okay, so that they can get into conflict in the community very quickly before it blows up and becomes something that disrupts the whole community. So this is how much
you are a mediator. In addition to your RLT training, you're also a mediator. And so you're going to bring those skill sets in so that people right there in the community have the ability to be RLT informed mediators.
Exactly. I can't use therapist or coach because the training is not going to be that extensive.
Of course.
Yeah. So even when husband and wives have issues, because the community settles it, but the way they do it is a 1 up, 1 down most times. But now we're going to teach RLT principles. So there are mediators who mediate, including couples issues, family issues, and all of that. RLT mediators.
I know I said this to you when we spoke last week, but this story of the Masquerades, I have a sense that this style that you're creating has the potential to be transferred into other cultures. Maybe not through masquerades, but perhaps there's other cultural stereotypes that other cultures could plug into a similar storyline.
100%, 100. You're very correct. Metaphors. I would call them metaphors. Yeah. Because, for example, so the thing that makes it so powerful is that when you use something that means a lot, a metaphor, a symbol that means a lot in the culture, they adapt it faster. And when you use the word control, it's very negative in some places. So nobody wants to be a controlling person. So, for example, in the corporate world, I'm trying to build something for someone who contacted me about a corporate situation, and we're looking at using something like rebel soldiers instead of masquerades or rebel executives, right? So there are these 5 rebel executives, and look at what they do when they get into the boardroom. Okay, so we borrow the language, and you can even fine tune it to each organization. It doesn't have to be generic. So whoever is working, you just understand the metaphor symbol match to what system that you're working with and adapt it so that makes them catch it very, very quickly. And get ready to transfer of skills. Don't be the expert, be same as, so that they take it with them. The best part of this was having people diagnose their micro conflicts. Got like 2 times they got conflicts in the community, and they use RLT to diagnose it themselves. They were having an argument, a fight, a public fight, and one person says, I want to talk about it. People are trying to stop the fight. And one person picks up a microphone and said, yeah, this is a masquerade of unbridled self-expression, the vomit of words, the masquerade of vomit of words, and this is the masquerade of retaliation. And it was because of the masquerade of vomit of words trying to criticize the thing that this person presented that was so beautiful. They criticized it at the wrong time and it hurt them. So the masquerade of retaliation gave it back to them. And now they are dancing the masquerade dance. And guess what? The 2 fighters started laughing. I said, is it us you're talking about? That was the end of the fight.
Unbelievable. What you have created is a model or a template that can be taken into other cultures. And if we as a world community can implement what you just implemented within your village, and if that could happen in every village and city around the world, we would have world peace.
I agree with you strongly. I agree with you, Sarah, 100%, because this community has changed so much. In fact, someone sent me a message and said, teach me how to love. One of the be right factions that
Teach
I
me
don't
how to
understand.
love.
Yeah, how do you do this? How are you able to communicate with someone that is so toxic towards you?
Huh.
And I want to learn it. So you can see that people are hungry for something like this. If we can put this, we're going to have world peace. I know that's very ambitious, but I agree that RLT is so simple and so powerful at the same time. The speed
Agreed.
is what is most amazing, the speed of implementation and results.
I am blown away by the speed at which you were able to see these results. Yeah, I really do think you're on the path to world peace with the work you're doing. I want to help. I want to be part of the mission with you.
Thank you, Sarah. And I really want to work with you because I don't think I can do this alone. I really want to break this down into something that is easy to repeat. Show people this is how I create the masquerade. This is
Yeah.
how you translate something between two people into something between 5,000, 10,000 people, how you can make peace for a community of 5,000 or 10,000 people. I want to be able to sit down and do that. And I want to show that this is repeatable in different places. So if it was possible, I'm open to partnering with anybody. I want to teach anyone that is willing to teach, willing to collaborate with me.
Well,
My door
maybe
is
I
open.
can collaborate with you in terms of getting this style or this model that you've created to be translatable so that we can document what you've created and be able to create a manual for others to do something similar.
Absolutely. Exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about. You just nailed it.
Let's do it. Let's make world peace. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm in.
And
I'm
it, and
100%,
even the
1000%
story,
in.
one more, the festival of
Okay.
the five masquerades as well. I would
And
also
then,
love for people to get access to it.
Chitty, you're a rock star. I would just really want to thank you for sharing this with our audience and with me.
Thank
You
you.
are a
Thank you,
total
Sarah.
powerhouse. I think that what you're up to is absolutely remarkable. I've never
Thank you
been
so
so inspired,
much.
actually, by anyone. And I
Eh,
100% mean that. Thank you for being here.
And thank you so much, Sarah, for giving me this opportunity in the first place. And I still want to thank Sarah Real for also making this possible, for creating RLT and making it accessible for everyone. And thank you for the cultural, you know, adaptations and giving us the opportunity to start thinking of how to apply it in different cultures. That is key to making this happen. So I'm really grateful for that as well.
And you mentioned the scholarship. And I just want to put a plug in for it that through Relational Life Foundation, there is a scholarship application to study to become an RLT practitioner at a reduced rate. So if you're doing good work in the world and you could use that financial support, check out relationallifefoundation.org to find the scholarship application. And Chiddie submitted a video for that scholarship application, and I knew immediately that you were on fire. That was super
Thank you.
clear right away. Your enthusiasm
Wow.
blew me out
Wow.
of the
Thank
water.
you.
That's why I
And
reached
since
out to
then,
you.
wow, my life has changed since then. I'm now, a licensed therapist, personality disorder therapist, working for the NHS. I mean, working for the government authorities here with their employees, and also doing my doctorate in psychoanalytic psychotherapy. It was that studying RLT because I had that scholarship, studied it, understood it, and started to think, how can I apply this in the communities where I grew up that are close to me? And so this pushed me to start to study. And now finally I'm doing my doctorate and I'm going to do more research.
Congratulations.
Thank you,
I'm
sir.
honored
Thank
to have
you.
been a small part of that journey.
Big part, foundation of that journey. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Facets of Connection. This show is brought to you by Relational Life Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to ending the chronic epidemic of loneliness by fostering community and transforming relationships. Its mission is focused on building stronger, more connected communities through research on relational health and through accessible therapeutic services and education. If you'd like to support this work, visit relationallifefoundation.org. Your generosity helps us make relational support available and accessible to more communities. On another note, I'd love to hear from you. Whether you've taken a workshop through Relational Life Foundation, if you're working with an RLT therapist, or simply if you have a guest or a topic to recommend for a future episode of Facets of Connection. I want to know, what's resonating with you? What's shifting? Or what are you still sitting with? Send me a quick voice memo or an email to Sarah with an H at facetsofconnection.com. Your story might even be featured in a future episode. I look forward to hearing from you. Facets of Connection is created by me, Sarah Melissa Oswald. Our executive producer is Carrie Allison Maloney, and our digital producer is Kim Novak. Follow us here on YouTube and wherever else you get your podcasts. Thank you in advance for your support. See you soon.